Proceed to the first item on the agenda is technically audience sharing. However, this is not a live stream, and so we're not able to have audience sharing at this time. We hope to have that up and running at some point in the near future when we're live. So we'll move on to new business. COVID-19 health situation is the first item.
So I did have a chance to tune into the select board's meeting last night, and they did go live. So I did reach out to Mark Purple, and hopefully at our next meeting, we will be good to have audience sharing and go live if we're continuing in this forum, in this medium. So in terms of the COVID-19 update, I just wanted to provide a few updates from each of the directors around the response that we've taken as a district. First, I just want to acknowledge all the hard work our educators have put into launching Southborough Connect 1.0 and 2.0. Their first priority has been the health and wellness of our students, connecting with our students, and they've really done an outstanding job. I've received a number of emails from community members just stating how proud they are of their teachers and their schools. And I also want to thank the principals and the leadership team, because they've done an outstanding job kind of leading this initiative. So Southborough Connect 2.0 is a different item on the agenda. So I will turn it over to the directors and have each director just give an update on each of the areas. And we'll start with Julie Doyle, the Director of Instructional Technology and Digital Learning.
Hi, everybody. So I just want to fill you in on how the technology department has been supporting this extended closure and remote learning. We have, as you can imagine, been working very hard, but I'm really proud of my team. Both the instructional techs and the tech specialists have really gone above and beyond in terms of providing support. We provided support in a number of ways. One of the programs that we have offered is the loan of some of our devices. So we're so thrilled to be able to share the devices that we have at our schools with families in need, and we have been reaching out to families and honoring their requests. The bus company works with us. Has helped organize the bus room, the patient rail, and Doug and all her nurses have been on this delivering the devices, and my department has been gathering the devices and packaging them up and keeping track of the inventory. We've also been providing a lot of instructional support. As you can imagine, teachers are learning a lot of new skills, and also just using the skills that they already have. So the teachers have done an amazing job of trying to work. They are also finding really the best way to connect with students, and a lot of them are using video conferencing, and I understand, and I can completely understand, because it's so much in the news, that there might be some concern over privacy and Zoom bombing. And I want to assure you that we've done a lot of research. We've had multiple meetings trying to figure out the best way to approach this. So we do offer things other than Zoom. Some teachers are using Google Meet, which is built into our suite of Google apps, but a lot of them are using Zoom, and Zoom has a K-12 version that has extended the 40-minute time limit for teachers. And the way that we are handling the privacy is we are requiring teachers to have certain settings. And those settings, one of them is requiring a password, but the other one that is probably the most helpful is enabling what's called the waiting room. And what the waiting room does is it makes it so, and maybe some of you guys already are aware of this, it makes it so the teacher has to let the students in, and that guards against any uninvited visitors. So I think that is the big concern with Zoom bombing, is people are just accessing and joining open Zoom calls. But the waiting room really makes it so that that can't happen. And we have some very specific guidelines that all of our students are supposed to follow. And the teachers will be reminding the students often about those guidelines. And one of those guidelines is, when you're in the waiting room, you have to give your full name, and then you will be allowed into the video conference. If the teacher doesn't recognize your name, you won't be allowed into the video conference. So I think overall, it's an amazing way to connect with students, and the teachers and the students and the parents are really appreciating those connections. So parents do have the option to opt out. We sent home a one call with an opt-out form. So, you know, if parents are still uncomfortable, they do have the option to opt out.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the technology?
I do have a quick question. I'll try to frame it as related to the teacher-student meeting, but it's probably a personal question too. If somehow somebody gets in, can the meeting leader get rid of them? Can you force somebody out if you're the meeting leader?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. I know that you had mentioned this, I think, at the last meeting, but what kind, a little bit, you know, that teachers have different kind of proficiency levels at like managing a lot of this technology stuff. Are they getting additional training, or will in terms of future planning to professional days to help negotiate these kind of issues?
Yeah, so what we've, first of all, our whole technology department has been responding to emails, but what we did offer last week, on Thursday and Friday, we had sessions, PD sessions, virtual PD sessions, and we had a huge turnout. We also recorded all of those PD sessions and have them available to teachers on a website. We've sent out a form and asking teachers what else they would like to learn about, what other tools, what other PD sessions would they find helpful, and we plan on doing those weekly.
Thank you.
Okay, that's wonderful. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, thank you for that, and thank you for addressing the Zoom issue. I know that that's been in the news, and I know people have been wondering about that, so appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, looks like next we go to food services update and financial impacts.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for this chance. A couple of updates from our combined meeting is that we continue to get families that have requested lunch service, and the way that it's working so far is that we are doing lunch deliveries to both Northborough and Southborough on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And at present, in the total of the district, we've been delivering over 250 lunches on each of those delivery dates to over 120 families. So a lot of things have come up. We've worked really hard on the routing of the buses. At present, we have 4 buses in Southborough and 4 buses in Northborough that are doing the routes. And thanks to Mary Ellen Duggan and the nurses who have helped the drivers in navigating the routes and making sure that the families are getting what they need has just been a really nice touch. Really thankful to the nurses for their efforts and the bus company. They've been really great. They've been flexible. And this was something that we put in place from the beginning of the closure. It took about, we were able to mobilize it pretty quickly. So we were able to start deliveries on March 18th, which I thought was great because our first day of closure, was the 12th. So we're able to move on this relatively quick, and we've gotten good news from the state that we are going to be reimbursed for these meals, which is always helpful. And in addition to that, our food services managers, Diane Kofer at the high school, who's been taking care of Northborough, and Kyle Parson, who's been at Trottier taking care of all the Southborough deliveries, has done a really nice job of maximizing their staffing and doing a good job putting together some quality lunches for our families. So that has really settled into a nice system that we've been able to develop from the infancy of this closure. So we're off and running.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Welcome.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Are the lunches for anybody who wants them, or are they for the families only the families who have been on free and reduced lunch?
Jessica, thank you for bringing that up. I did neglect to mention that in this review. From the beginning, we knew that this pandemic was going to have an impact that did go beyond our free and reduced lunch families. So we did offer it to everyone in the district, but we have monitored our free and reduced lunch families school by school to make sure that outreach has been taken to each of those families. But as of now, we're still able to offer it to all families, which is a great thing, because we also learned last week that the state is able to reimburse us for all the meals that we've been able to provide, not just those for free and reduced lunch families, which has been a great benefit to the district.
That's great. So how can people, people's situations changed and they
Yeah.
can really benefit from that? How can they sign up at this point?
Well, we've continued to send it as part of Superintendent Martineau's updates. It will always be one of the talking points in those updates. And we're probably due for another one in, maybe next week after Ennisboro Connect 2.0 settles in. So we can send that back out, and it's a Google form, very simple Google form that can be filled out. And I'm the one that's managing those requests and making sure that they get routed properly. So all those requests come through me, and then we're able to get it done and turn it over within a couple of days, and then they're on the delivery route.
Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So Katora, I can provide a financial update on the food service budget.
Okay.
So we are looking at a loss of revenues for March through the end of April of approximately $98,000. And that would be in those students who are purchasing lunches through our food service program. Our salary expenses for that same time period, we're looking at $71,200. Estimating out through the end of the year, if this closure were to go on, we're looking at a loss of revenues of approximately $222,000 and salary expenses of, I gave you the wrong number there for salary expenses. It was actually $31,200. My glasses.
I was going to say, I was like, I don't know if that's.
My glasses aren't good. And so the salary expenses through the end of the year would be $69,700. So we are anticipating that this is going to have an impact on our operational budget for FY20, depending on the length of the closure. We already had about $10,000 encumbered in our operational budget for food service. If it were to only extend through the end of April, we would probably be looking at about $39,000, an additional $39,000 to the bottom line. But if we were to continue through the end of the year, we're probably looking at $90,000 on the bottom line.
Okay. And do those numbers take into account that we're not, whatever food we're not buying at this point, and also the reimbursement from the state?
Yeah, we did not factor in any of those expenses, because the hope is that it will be a net, that it will all even out. So the two big expenses really right now, or considerations, are the loss of revenues and then the salaries that we continue to pay.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have to keep an eye on it and see how it goes. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Thank you for that. So next we'll move on to transportation, contract, and services. I think, Keith, is that you again? Or
we can tag team.
We'll tag team. Go ahead, Becky, you start.
So I have been working with the business managers who also contract with NRT, and we actually held a call yesterday to discuss our contract. Some figures were thrown out, and so we're continuing those conversations. Actually, tomorrow, Keith, Greg, and I are going to be speaking with John McCarthy, who is the owner of NRT, to further discuss a price reduction in our transportation costs for the remainder of the school year, or however long our closure is. We have been made aware that we may be eligible for reimbursement through the CARES Act that was enacted, and the amount will be dependent upon our Title I allocation. They're going to look at that formula, and that's how they'll determine the amount that school districts will actually receive. But it's a big pot of money, but it's going out nationwide and then to all of the school districts within Massachusetts. So what we actually, end up seeing, it still remains to be seen.
Okay. All right.
And, I just want to say they have been so helpful when it comes to the technology and the food service delivery. They've been great to work with. So
Yeah, I want to echo that. They have been very, very cooperative. I've been in touch with them a few times a week and sometimes daily to make sure we're keeping them abreast of what we're requesting. And they have been very responsive in creating this whole new system that we're operating under. So I do give them a lot of credit for working with us and providing us what we need at this point. It's been a great piece of what we've been trying to produce for the family. So it's been good.
Okay, excellent. All right, any questions on that from anybody? Okay, so then we'll move on to MCAS, which I think is Greg. You still there, Greg?
He's muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
So just a quick update to the committee and the community on MCAS. We have not heard official word from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education whether MCAS is going to be rescheduled. MCAS is part of a larger law, Every Student Succeeds Act, and I think the department is waiting for official word from the federal government around flexibility to postpone or cancel. My prediction is that MCAS will be postponed and most likely canceled, but we have not heard official word at this point. And I will let the committee and the community know once we officially hear.
Okay, I mean, they would at least have to postpone it, correct? Because aren't there dates that fall within this closure?
Yes, there are windows of time that do fall within the closure. So there would be significant modifications to the calendar and the schedule. And quite honestly, I don't think that students will experience MCAS this year. I think if we think about how students are feeling and families are feeling in terms of their health and wellness, providing a high stakes test in this environment probably is not a good idea.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Any questions from anybody? Okay, so we'll move on to association and memorandum of agreement.
I'm actually going to turn this over to Heather Richards to speak about the work that we've done with our Southborough Teachers Association.
Thank you. Yes, so the memorandum of agreement that we have doesn't really change the collective bargaining agreement that's in place, but what it does is we have worked with the association president and come up with some terms as to an agreement as to how we are going to be working together through these unusual circumstances, because this is technically a change in working conditions. So it's really important that we have a mutual understanding and have that codified. And so we were able to come up with an agreement so that is linked to the NSBorough Connect 2.0 so that we are all operating with the same information.
Okay, and is that finalized at this point?
It has been finalized, yes.
Okay. And I think is the same document that we reviewed last time. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And is that open to being revisited depending on what happens coming up? I would assume so, right? When we talk about April vacation or if there happens to be an extended closure or something like that.
Yeah, so it's a document that was executed, but we can certainly modify that after we discuss with the associations.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
Can
there
I
was
ask a question on that?
Yep. Paul?
Could you just go through, remind us of what the highlights of that were, you know, what the teachers are agreeing to?
Yeah, so the highlights were really, this is how we're going to operate as far as we have a schedule that's set forth, and our expectations are that teachers are engaged in remote learning, because it's all about a remote learning experience in real time. That's the essence of the agreement, and what we expect from teachers and what the educators can expect from us as a district.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. Anyone else?
Okay,
Okay.
I was trying to raise the hand approach, but it didn't work.
Oh, you know what? I can only see one person at a time because I'm on an iPad, unfortunately.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Yeah, good point.
Okay. Yeah.
We experimented with different things in the search committee. I think we did have pretty clear language in that agreement that made it fairly easily extensible, right? I mean, I think that we talked a little bit about that to try to make it easy for both parties to work through, you know, if we needed to extend the time frame. So that's what I recall.
That is correct, Roger. And there's also a circular reference from the agreement to the NSBoro Connect 2.0 document. So if things are changed, we consider the NSBoro 2.0 Connect document a living and breathing document. If something's not working, then we can revisit it and make adjustments as needed.
Okay. Great. All right. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay. So next we go to revolving accounts and fees.
That is Becky.
Says Becky, but yeah.
Sorry. So the major revolving account that impacts Southborough would be the preschool revolving account, because that is the one account that really benefits both communities. As I mentioned at the combined school committee meeting, we have notified families that we intend to issue a refund for the school closure. We have not come up with a final figure to communicate out to families yet until we know the actual final length of the closure. At the beginning of the 2019-2020 school year, this revolving account did have a balance of $157,000. If the school year were to resume on May 4th, we estimate the refund would be approximately $38,000 to $39,000 to family, which would leave a remaining balance of $63,000 in that revolving account. If it were to continue through the end of the year, we're looking at closer to an $80,500 refund to families, leaving a ending balance of about $21,000 in that account. So thankfully, it was healthy at the beginning of the year. It mainly pays for salaries. We have a few teachers, we have a tutor, and a couple of aides that we pay for through this revolving account. We have also purchased some supplies for the preschool using these funds. So while it's healthy at the end of the year, we'll have to continue to build that up in future years so that we can continue to provide all of those services, and also look at our budgets for next year to see whether there'll be any staff implications that will need to be moved onto operating budgets.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Anyone have any questions? Okay. All right, thank you. So then we'll move on to student support services.
Okay, Hello, everybody. As we have begun to roll out our Southborough Connect 2.0 mandated learning this week for all students, our student support services teams are reaching out to families to provide notice of a distance learning plan for each of our students on IEP programs or IEPs. The distance learning plan is a combination of supports and resources and instruction. Last evening, I sent out a one-call to our special education parent community, providing details about special education supports and instruction with an accompanying FAQ. This information will be uploaded to our student support tab on our Southborough Connect 2.0 website over the next week, along with additional resources for families. And this will be a dynamic tab where parents are encouraged to check in regularly for updates. We continue to collaborate with our staff, families, and our Northborough Southborough Parent Advisory Council during this unprecedented time of remote learning. The professionalism and responsiveness of our student support staff to adapt to this new educational model has been absolutely phenomenal, as has been our collaboration with building principals and the central office team. It's really taken a team to put this together. Our families' individual situations are being considered as we move forward in our planning and instruction. We realize that family situations are dynamic during this time, and they are encouraged to reach out to their child support staff with any questions or concerns so that we can be flexible in providing the services that we need to provide.
Okay.
I have a question. Actually, this is comes from a parent who has a child with on an IEP, and she I was just wondering, you know, what she was saying, from what I can tell, is that she's getting a one-on-one service or some like one-on-one teacher support for half an hour a day, and yet she says what she's missing is things like that he was getting like 4 speech sessions, OT, PT, and all of those additional things, and there haven't been, at least from her perspective, I know this is early in the process, but little information about whether or not those potential things can continue and the impact that that would have potentially on these mandatory assignments. So I'm wondering if there's any updates on those other services, or that's something that could be done remotely, or what the plan for that is.
The answer is yes. So there is no expectation that there is a one-to-one delivery of all the services on the individualized education program. So part of what is in this distance learning plan, which is being rolled out this week, so maybe this parent hasn't seen the complete distance learning plan, it is a combination of supports and resources. So that's check-ins, and it's enrichment activities, it's new learning, it's a combination of a lot of things, as well as the direct instruction. So so the distance learning plan will provide the details of what that looks like. And yes, all of those services that you mentioned will be considered by the team and rolled out to the parents individually. So maybe they just haven't gotten the distance learning plan yet. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, very good. So then circuit breaker under student support services is the next item.
Okay, so for FY20, we, as you know, for circuit breaker, we use the funds that we receive through this program to offset our costs for our out-of-district placements. And so we use the funds that were received in FY19 towards our FY20 budget. We received $760,237 to be used for FY20, and so far this year we have expended $621,600. So we anticipate using the remaining $138,637 to offset tuitions, to prepay for tuitions for the FY21 budget. We're able to prepay some of the summer programming and then some of the tuition at the beginning of the school year in FY21. So that is definitely something that will be helpful as we go forward with next year's budget.
Okay. Is any of that affected by the COVID-19 situation, or is this all what would otherwise be the case?
So we are working with our out-of-district placements right now. Marie and her team have been reaching out to all of the out-of-district placements and have been identifying those programs and the services that they're providing. We are only aware of one school, and Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, that is not offering any services, that has actually closed. The remaining programs are offering services. We're also looking to identify those students who may have been placed residentially who are no longer attending residentially, and we'll be engaging in conversations with those schools to offset some of those tuitions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
I have a question. Kind of relates to managing the budget for this account. So the two numbers you mentioned, and I don't have them exact, is our budget was about 700 for the, or let's see, the reimbursement was 700. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's the amount of circuit breaker funds that we received for FY20.
And we've expended 600, we'll say, something like that?
Yes, 621.
So when we, and I know you were tracking this, when we pay out-of-district tuition, do those funds mostly get paid upfront, sort of at the beginning of the year, as opposed to allocated all throughout the year? Is that how that works?
We encumber the money at the beginning of the year, but the money is spent down as we receive invoices from the schools.
So when you say we've spent 600, that means we've encumbered 600?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just comment on, when you look at the line item in our budget for out-of-district special education, it is just the district's portion. It does not include the circuit breaker amount. It does not offset, it's not offset by circuit breaker. And the other piece is, when we looked at our FY21 budget projections, we did anticipate having not spent all of the FY20 circuit breaker, and we actually used that to reduce our FY21 budget moving forward.
Okay. Also,
okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll move on to the federal grant, IDEA.
So the IDEA grant is another special education grant. Southborough's portion of this grant is $362,482. We expend those funds on a number of things. We expend them on direct aid support for students. We also use it for some of the OT, PT services that are rendered to students in the school and now in the home environment. We also contract with Family Service Partnership, and they are working with our families as well. Last month, we had been notified that Southborough specifically was awarded an additional, and hold on to your hats for this one, $1,432. It's not a large amount, but when we met collectively, we determined that those additional funds would be used for assistive technology tools that may help students with any home-based learning during the closure. And so we continue to monitor those grant funds and make sure that those grant funds are being spent down accordingly, and file amendments as needed.
Okay, excellent. Anyone have any questions about that? Okay, well, thank you everyone for all of that that information. It's obvious there are a lot of moving parts to all of this. It's very interesting and wide-ranging, all of the things that this is bringing up. So thank you for all of your hard work and keeping the ship moving while we're dealing with all of this. I think that takes us to Ennisboro Connect 2.0.
And before I begin with Ennisboro Connect 2.0, I left off a very important person, and that is Mary Ellen Duggan, who was our district wellness coordinator. And I just wanted to give her a minute to speak on the work that she's been doing with our school nurses.
Hi, everybody. I just want to thank Keith and the dietary staff, Kyle and Diane, because they've been doing a great job with the lunches, and Julie with the tech devices. The nurses are staying busy delivering those on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's a great connection for them. They get to set their eyes on some of our students and families and check in with them on their health and well-being. We're also busy doing wellness checks on our medically fragile families and students. I've been collaborating with Dr. Medina and Dr. Wilkins, who is our school physician and our consultant psychiatrist, so that we can provide resources for families during this time. And recently, I've connected with the new Southborough public health nurse, as Leslie is retiring next week, and the new person is jumping in. So when both of them aren't working, we're going to be putting the school nurses to work, contacting all of the close contacts of people who have tested positive. So they're staying busy.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, thank you for all of that. Thank you for all of your work and everybody who's around you. Really wonderful.
So now Ennisboro Connect 2.0. So again, I think this has been a collaborative effort from principals and district leaders and association presidents and feedback from parents. I just want to remind the committee and the community that this has been a changing landscape for us, beginning on March 13th when we closed for a day. And then as a committee and as a district, we made a decision to close for 2 weeks through, I believe, March 27th. At that time, the Commissioner of Education extended that closure an additional week through, I believe, April 6th or 7th. And then the governor made an announcement closing us through May. So we've had a changing and evolving situation in terms of an extended closure. We launched Ennisboro Connect 1.0 with an understanding that the wellness and health of our students and families was most important, and that part of that equation was making sure our students were connected to faculty and staff. Once we learned that we'd be closed for an extended period of time, through the governor, the Department of Education provided districts with guidelines for remote learning plans. I think a lot of the language has been thrown out, that mandatory plans, and I just want to be clear that at no point in time, and I guess it's semantics, did we say it was mandatory. Our language that we use was more required, but we've been working very closely with families in their unique context and families' capacities, and helping families adjust and adapt to what works for families. That's our number one priority. But on your screen is basically some of the guidelines from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the tenets that we developed, Ennisboro Connect 1.0 and 2.0. And first and foremost, it's really about the holistic needs of the educational community, and it's about the mental health, the physical and academic health of our students. Part of the guidelines provided by the commissioner really asked districts to adopt remote learning models with the understanding that nothing could replace the in-person schooling experience. That we're not trying to replicate what happens during the school day. And part of the guidelines really were an appropriately structured educational program. And that's one of the tenets we used to build Ennisborough Connect 2.0. Part of the recommendations that were made from the department were really to have productive learning for approximately half the length of a regular school day. So about 3 hours in total. We thought that was actually quite a bit, and we came up with with some time frames that we thought were developmentally appropriate for our students. And I think, I think again, the primary goal was to engage our students academically and to make sure that they were having connections with our faculty and staff. The Ennisborough Connect 2.0 model, again, it's available on our website. It's broken down into high school, middle school, and elementary, and it really takes the unique developmental levels of our students. And one of the things we did, we spent a lot of time talking about families who may have children in multiple schools and trying to manage multiple schedules. So we tried to create a framework for teachers and expectations for teachers that also links back to the Memorandum of Understanding. So much of the information that parents can access is available on the Ennisborough Connect 2.0 website. As Marie Allen mentioned, we will be adding a Student Support Services tab with information for parents and what they can expect. And again, I want to reiterate that our position is that we're requiring this of students and families at the same time, if families are concerned and it's not working for them, to reach out to either the child's teacher or the principal or me, and we're more than willing to make adjustments or make accommodations to meet the needs of families. I think the launch was Monday. It feels like it was months ago, but our launch was Monday. I think overall the feedback has been very positive. I think families have been very appreciative. Our educators have done an outstanding job making connections with students. I have received some emails from families regarding, mandatory, and I've assured parents that, if it doesn't work for a family, there are no repercussions. Students will not be retained. When students come back to school, we will assess where students are and try to pick up where we left off to the best of our ability. But again, our intention is not to hold students back from moving to the next grade level or school. However, if a family is concerned about what a child has missed and concerned about being promoted to another grade level, we encourage parents to have conversations with the teachers, principals, to make good decisions based on the context and the situation. So I would like to ask the principals if they wanted to just share a couple of comments around Ennisborough Connect from their perspective as principals leading this work in their buildings.
I could start, Greg. I just have to give a shout out to the entire Fin staff for the work that they put into this next round of connectivity with our students. As you know, there are multiple means of connection that were talked about within the document, and we have to say all of our staff really opted for the most visual, the most real connection they could find to connect with our kids, because they realized that those connections are really what makes school for them. And so our teachers have been doing Zoom meetings in the morning, and the photos that teachers have taken of their sessions with the grid and the smiling faces and the kids just in awe, it's incredible. That's what it's all about. And it's really connecting with them in a way that meets their emotional need right now, because as Greg pointed out, every family is dealing with this in their own way, and our kids are struggling. at the elementary level, in the sense that they have lost those true connections with their teachers, who on a large scale have been their caretakers for 6 hours of the day for a good part of the school year. So it's about the social emotional connections first and foremost for us at Finn, and we're weaving in academics to that. And I think that's going to carry us far for as long as we're in this.
I would echo Clayton's points. I'm just so proud of the Woodward staff and the way that they've been able to come together, continue to come together and collaborate to provide pretty rich learning opportunities for students despite the distance. It hasn't been easy, and I think that social piece has been one of the more challenging aspects of the closure. But I know that my staff is working incredibly hard to make sure that they are still connecting with students through live docs, through Google Zoom or excuse me, Zoom meetings or Google Meets. So there still is that connection despite the distance. Our care theme of last month was cooperation, and we're trying to do a virtual care assembly for tomorrow actually. So we've created a bunch of videos, and I reflected back on the collaboration and cooperation piece in my message to students, just because I think it's been remarkable so far.
Yeah, and at Neary, I completely agree with what Stephen Clayton just shared as well, because the connections, the innovation, the ability to reach out to students and families has been just remarkable. And I am too very proud of our staff and proud of how the parents have connected and just everybody working together in such a collaborative way to make sure we're reaching all students. And I mean, we're not replicating the exact day, but we are making things predictable and routine for students, and that's been really helpful. I've been able to be in a few of our Zoom sessions, and it's so nice to see the students and just make a connection and give a little wave or participate in a read aloud. It's remarkable what we've done in such a short amount of time. So I'm proud of all the teachers and parents and students included.
And I will echo all the sentiments from my colleagues. The work that our staff has done has been impressive. You know, to think about where they were with technology 2 weeks ago and where they are now, for the benefit of our students, just kind of shows our staff resiliency. Seeing our kids, whether it's Zoom or on a discussion board, has been really enriching and rewarding. I think I also want to credit the central office leadership. From that transition from 1.0 to 2.0 was a huge task. And, you know, I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish on the fly as you compare it to other districts. I think where we're landing on this has been very helpful. It's provided students and families with some routine and structure, which I think has been needed during these difficult times. So I think that's really impressive, and our teachers have been able to adapt accordingly. In our first week with Ennisboro 2.0, what I'm hearing from grade level teams is the attendance has been outstanding. So whether people have considered it voluntary or required, I think there's just been this desire from our students to reconnect with their peers and with their teachers, and they're showing up in droves, and those conversations are taking place. Our guidance counselors are planning lunch groups. We have breakout sessions. That connectivity, which was really that focal point, is really coming to life during this past week. So I'm very proud of all the efforts.
So I just want to, again, comment that this has been a collaborative effort. I think that as we look ahead, and the question I ask in my mind is, will we return on May 4th? And although I do not have a crystal ball, I think it is highly unlikely that social distancing will be lifted. I think it will be a gradual process, and that we could see an extended closure beyond May 4th. I feel like that the framework that we've created with Ennisboro Connect 2.0 is a great foundation that will allow us, if we need to continue the work. as a leadership team also, we're very reflective. We've met a couple times this week to talk about, what are we hearing from families? Where are, what do we need to focus in on? We don't have all of the answers, but we're listening and we're talking, and we will adjust and accommodate as we move forward into next week. I also know at the middle school and the elementary, grading and student feedback is part of the conversation that we've been having. And we don't have all the answers, but we're doing a lot of just having a lot of discussions about what we think is best in terms of providing students with feedback around their academic progress. So all of those types of questions we're still working on trying to just solidify and get some good answers. I know Gary at Trottier has been working closely with his colleague in Northborough and colleague at the region and trying to sort this out and have some pretty good ideas of how things will move forward in terms of grading.
All right, thank you everyone for all of that. I can say firsthand that we have definitely seen the sort of ramp up in what's happening in the transition from 1.0 to 2.0, and it is really impressive all of the thought and work that has gone into organizing everything and arranging sort of a progressive and manageable, hopefully, amount of work for the students. I do know that, what I've heard is that there has been a little bit of concern among families or, about getting required things done if they can't do it. And I do think it's reassuring to hear that there would be no negative ramifications if that just ends up not being possible for a family. And then about the grading, I think that some people are anxious to hear about that at the middle school level because, just wondering how everyone's going to be evaluated on the work that they're doing in these circumstances. So it's good to hear that that's being worked on. And do you think that there will be some further guidance on that within the next week or some short time frame?
Yeah, I think that, again, we had a conversation today as a leadership team. I know Gary and Kathleen and the team, they have some ideas. And Gary, I don't know if you want to speak, if you're ready to speak about the middle school in particular, and what the current thinking is.
Sure. Yeah, I think that, right now, in regards to if you were to take the entire year, what a student's final grade would look like, where we are right now is 50% would be weighted from first semester grade. And then we had, our grading window from January 27th to March 12th. So if you want to, so that'd be 25%. And then, kind of when we created this framework, we thought about a 4 week, and we were working within a 4 week framework. So Ennisboro Connect 2.0 is, in the grade book, but it's not weighted. We will track student assignments, we will track student participation, and we will give them feedback on their work. And then ideally, we'll pick up May 4th to June 23rd, and that time frame would be another 25%. So that January to March time frame plus the May to June would be the second 50% of the year. And that Ennisboro Connect 2.0 is a place marker. In regards to grades, we're just we're assessing students, but we're not grading students. Really, the focal point is to try to get them re-engaged and reconnected. So we are encouraging, students are given feedback by if they're showing up, they're submitting work, and they're participating. That's been the number one priority. And so we are, giving them feedback on student engagement, and then whatever work they submit, we're just kind of using, we're just indicating whether they're meeting mastery of the curriculum or the content or skills. And we're just using the language that we see in our report card, whether it's, meeting expectations or progressing to expectations. But again, if a family cannot participate in this, they're not going to be penalized in any way, shape, or form. So I think for parents and students, they want to know how their child's doing. They are going to get that feedback about, about meeting expectations. But if a family cannot participate or child cannot participate, then there's not going to be any, negative consequence towards their grade.
Okay. And I assume that would be revisited in the event that that the closure goes longer. I don't know if that would change the closure evaluation process, but it would possibly change the weighting.
It may.
Yeah.
I think we're just, we're a week into it, and I think we're all trying to navigate what it looks like and feels for the kids. And right now, I think it's been a nice balance so far. And I think that engagement piece has really spoken to the goal of NSPRO 2.0. So.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have a question. I was wondering if you could speak to this issue. And again, I think this is, all of this information that you all are presenting is very helpful. There's been a lot of anxiety that I can see on social media, particularly about, I think the grading is one of the big pieces. And then also this mandatory or required, or however you're going to speak to it. I was wondering if you could speak to the rationale for why you decided, some different districts are doing different things in terms of optional versus required, and what you think that some of you have mentioned a little bit already, but what you think the benefits of taking this particular approach is over just saying everything's going to be optional.
So I'll just speak to this briefly, and then principals, you can add to the conversation. So NSPRO Connect 1.0 was completely optional. We had, I think, sparse attendance in terms of students who were participating. The structures were inconsistent from school to school, from classroom to classroom. So when we looked at this to make it, I think, rigorous and purposeful, part of the structure was really creating some structure for teachers too, a framework for them to work within, and for teachers to be able to teach, making sure that there was good participation on the students' part. And also our belief that the required piece is really helping to establish routines, helping teachers to continue to teach new content and move the curriculum forward. So that was the basic premise, that part of this wellness and health and stability of students was creating that schedule and that structure of learning and providing a framework around that. The required, mandatory, I mean, I agree, it's a bit of semantics. Our position all along has been that we will work with families in whatever context. We will adjust and accommodate to whatever their needs are. We've had families reach out and said, this just is not going to work for us. And our position is, okay, how can we support you? How can we support your children? So the requirement really is about participation and making sure students are participating, but also having some flexibility to meet the different unique context of families.
Yeah, I think the other thing what we realized in 1.0, without that structure, we felt that teachers were pushing out a lot of optional assignments, and it did not have that structure for students to really decide where to go, what to do, and as a result, I think our attendance was limited. I think we're now and teachers are almost competing against each other in terms of time with students. So having more of that structure and that focus in those windows of time is really just giving students some of those routines and expectations that we've established all year. And that block has really helped teachers. It's helped families tremendously. That's some of the feedback that we've gotten. But as I would also echo the sentiment what Greg said, is if we have been tracking student attendance, and if we are finding that students are not engaging, we're simply reaching out to those families and having a conversation, and we're supporting them in the process.
If I could add something. So I think Gary alluded to this. One thing we're also trying to gain was or provide parents with routines and not have conflicting schedules depending on kids at different levels. As a parent of 3 students myself, we found that the optional offerings in our district made it very challenging to really navigate and find the priorities, and as well as manage 3 kids on trying to put them on Zoom calls with their teachers. So, and they're all in one school at the elementary level. So we were hearing from parents and families with students in multiple levels and different schools across Southborough that was a challenge. So we felt that providing some sort of structure where teachers could connect with students within certain timeframes was going to be helpful to parents and families and give them more of a predictable day.
And if I can just add on to that, speaking to the structure piece, it's not only allowed our classroom teachers to continue instructing our students, but it's also provided a structure for our specialists as well to bring those learning opportunities to our students. And many of our students, those are the highlights of their day, art and PE and music. And it's also at Neary, I'll speak to, been able to provide students with band and orchestra lessons. So I think that's really important. And if we hadn't created the structure and the schedule that we did, we wouldn't have been able to create this model that we've entered into on Monday. So I think that's a huge plus in 2.0.
Can I just add one little part, Jen, regarding the priority? A lot of work, a tremendous amount of work was done in terms of prioritizing key content and what it looks like at a developmental level for all of our kids. And we knew that we couldn't replicate the school day in any sense of the word, but we could at least hone in on those key content areas, prioritize what our focal points are, and offer some engaging learning opportunities at every developmental level to kind of keep our kids going within a structure. So I think that was done. We were at it in Zoom meetings and break off sessions for days in trying to do that with content specialists. So a lot of work was done in trying to prioritize really where we should go with NSBoro 2.0.
Thank you.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I fully support the idea of NSBoro 2.0 and, the whole idea of moving forward and echoing what all of you just said, of creating structure and a schedule. I think that's really important. And mainly we are in the business of education here. So I think we owe it to the kids to put our best foot forward, as Kathleen might say, and try to move forward and teach. I mean, that's what we're here to do. And I don't do Facebook. Maybe I'm a dinosaur in that regard, but I did put out an email to some folks I know who still have kids in the K-8 system. They're getting few and far between now, so it wasn't cherry picking. And I tell you, the response I got was almost universally positive. So it was like things like, I've been very impressed with the district's response during this time. One of them said she got required technology delivered to her front door. Another said she felt nothing but support from the schools, things like that. So, I mean, it's a small sample, but I think it's telling. And I just want to commend you. I think you guys have done a tremendous job so far.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I agree. I would just add one thing. I mean, I think you guys have done a great job. For us, it's worked really well. And I think for me, it's alleviated a lot of stress in the sense that, I don't have to try and teach third grade curriculum, which I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So having that structure in place, I think, is helpful for me. There is, at least from what I mentioned, there's a very vocal group that I think that comes from the anxiety of, like, I think partly because of the grading part and what does this mean if I just can't handle. So I'm not sure if there's and this has been mentioned on the website too, the flexibility, but a way of getting information out again to reiterate those points of, that will, who to reach out to if your family can't manage these things, what are the consequences of your, just very, like, bullet points or something, so that can alleviate some of the anxiety for those folks who feel that it's a burden for their families. But I also commend you for, for all of the work that you and the teachers have been doing.
I think that's an excellent point. And as we're fielding questions and getting feedback from educators and parents, we are making adjustments and accommodations. And it feels like we've been doing this for a long time. It's hard to believe that this is our third day. So we encourage families to reach out to us. We know because there's a lot of structure behind it, it feels mandatory or required, but we will reach out to families and let them know that they can reach out to us, and our goal is to support in whatever capacity we can. So that, I think that's an excellent point.
One thing I do want to bring up is, I've talked to a few people I know who are therapists, and talked to multiple parents, and everybody, the parents have all been, the first thing they say is, I so appreciate everything everybody's doing, and everybody's doing such a great job. And then there's a but, like not a but like about the teachers, but my kid's super stressed out by this, is what I've been hearing a lot of. And I have two kids, and one there is fine with it, and the other's struggling a bit because, as we know, we live in like a really high performing, sometimes high stress, academic community. And there's also the peer pressure as you get older, in the 4th, 5th, middle school of, well, I'm stupid if I'm not doing this, and why can't I handle this? And I have to keep emphasizing to people who I know, to my own kids, like, life is not normal. This is not normal. And this isn't normal for anybody, for your teachers, for your friends, for you, for your parents. Like, this is hard. And I just want to, maybe, like, at least in the middle school level, I think I'm hearing from a lot of parents and seeing it with my own kid that there's still similar expectations for work as there is in a normal school year. And I think a lot of people might be hesitant to voice that because at the teenage level or preteen level, you worry about what everybody else thinks a lot. So I see that in my own family, and I see that from other families, that it's, my own kid is doing homework way more than half a day for sure. So, it's hard. So I think keeping the feedback going and just really being clear on the Northborough NSBorough Connect website about grading. I still, people ask me, like, some people are saying they think their kids are being graded on everything. And I said, well, I'm pretty sure, and I went and I looked for the information, and I couldn't find anything specific about grades. And like, that's what people want to know. They want to know exactly how their kids are being assessed and graded. And I think it's come out in some emails and different communications, but it gets lost, and it really needs to be on that website, because I still don't know how to answer the question for my own kids when they're asking me, like, they think they're being graded on everything. And I keep telling them, this is a finite amount of time. This is different. Grades closed on March 12th. Like, this is a totally different thing, but their teachers are still acting like everything's pretty normal. So I think that really needs to be spelled out.
That's good feedback. I think one of the things that we've been trying to be measured with is the amount of communication as well. I think when we launched, students and families were inundated with levels of communication. Although we did communicate the grading, I completely understand how that may have gotten lost in some of the emails that were sent out. So we will have to recalibrate some messaging around that. Just like, we've had families that said, although we mentioned time and time again, 1.0 was optional. When teachers were pushing out assignments, it didn't feel optional. Although we kept on saying it didn't feel optional. So I guess it's kind of, calibrating messaging, and it's also calibrating the work that's being pushed out. So that's good feedback.
And just
oh, sorry, Greg, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just a comment that I agree. One of the goals, and we had a conversation around this today, whether it's student support services or grading at the middle school or elementary levels, that everything needs to be driven to NSBorough Connect 2.0 website, so that it's a single place where families can get their questions answered. And then the other two comments I'll make quickly is it's essential that there's a feedback loop between educators and parents. This is our first pandemic as well. So we're trying to navigate this to the best we can, and that parents should not be fearful of providing us with feedback, because that's how we can make improvements and become better. And lastly, I just want to point out that all of us as employees of the district, many of our educators, our families with children at home, are living this as well. So not only are they trying to create structure for their students, but they're also in their home lives trying to make meaning for themselves. So I think there's the nice thing, if there is a good thing, is that we're all in this, we're all experiencing it. And I think the more we can remind our students that this is, to your point, this is not normal, this is unique, and do the best you can. And I think those are important points to make with our students, but also our staff.
Thank you. And I also was just going to mention that I think that there's probably a sort of an initial growing pains time period where there will be feedback about, the amount. It's probably hard to gauge, how long actually will it take the students to do these things. And so if there's that open line of communication of letting the teachers or the principals know, what's happening in your home and if it's working or not. I know for us, for example, I don't think I've ever spent so much time in my life setting up apps and like getting into apps and troubleshooting apps and like figuring that all out. And that probably has been, on some days that's been the majority of my time personally. But I know that once it's up and running, and now that we're setting something up that will hopefully work for the next several weeks at a minimum, hopefully not longer, but we don't know, and it could very well be a couple of months. If we can sort of just kind of get through this initial stage and help each other set it up so that it will be successful, I think it has a good chance of doing that. But it is a way to move education forward, to Paul's point, and that is what we're trying to do. And I heard a lot of feedback from people also who do really appreciate the efforts of the teachers and administrators, and are really glad to have some learning opportunities for their kids that go beyond review and reiterate things they already knew, and they're actually sort of progressing in their education. So those are my thoughts. Anyone have anything else?
Yeah, I have one specific question I've gotten from a few parents. They're wondering how this is going to affect particularly fifth graders when they're moving on to middle school. They have to be placed for math. I've heard that a few times. Is there any thought on that and how that might affect things?
Kathleen, do you want to take this?
So Gary and I just had a conversation about this morning, because it's on our minds as well. We want to make sure that we're making the best decisions possible for our fifth grade students. So we're exploring different ideas, and we're also talking with the math teachers at both Neary and at Trottier, and we're going to have another conversation at the end of the week and then talk to Greg about it as well, to make that decision the best one we possibly can. I mean, clearly, ending in March, we didn't have the opportunity to assess our students. We usually do an assessment that we use as a data point with other points that we look at and examine them and then make decisions for math placement. We don't have that right now. So how do we move forward and make the best decision possible? It's definitely going to be determined. We just need some time to figure that out and to make the best decision possible.
Okay, great, thanks. And I just want to reiterate that every single parent I talked to has been over the top appreciative of everything that the schools are doing, whether they're struggling with what's going on or not. The universal thought is, I can't believe how much they're doing for our kids. This is awesome. So you guys are doing great.
Thank you for that. And just so you're aware, and the committee's aware, it's this time of year where we're dipping our toes into next year as well as this year and trying to create a balance and make sure that we're planning while still maintaining what we need to right now. So it's on all administrators' minds, and we're definitely having conversations. So we want to make those great decisions. We just need a little bit more time to be able to do that.
Okay, anything else on all of that?
I just have one more comment. Getting back to the communication piece of it. You know, Greg, I can assume you don't want all 1,000 families or whatever you have emailing you all the time. So I wonder if we could do more on educating parents on how to submit feedback. And I assume it's the usual chain of command, go to the teacher. You know, if you don't get what you need there, go to the principal and on up from there. But, you know, I'm just looking at the website now. I mean, it's there if you look hard enough, but, you know, maybe that could be a little clearer.
I think, no, I appreciate that, Paul, because I think we're all fielding a lot of emails. And I think to Jennifer's point too, another kind of a summary email going out to parents around the key tenets of Ennisboro Connect 2.0 and how to provide us feedback. Go out, you know, I think, you know, obviously tomorrow is the last day of this week. So something Monday probably or Sunday evening probably makes the most sense to do that.
One parent that I read had mentioned something about the potential, I'm sorry, about the potential of some kind of forum or a Q&A session or some way in which they could give feedback. And, you know, I don't know if that's something that you all would be interested or would be useful, or if anyone would attend. I'm not sure, but that could be one way of fielding everything in one place as opposed to individually, family per family.
One thing we're finding is that people have a lot of time. so they're more than willing to participate. So that's an interesting idea. I think, you know, just to be completely honest with the committee and the community, you know, we are in the weeds right now and slowly poking our heads out. And those are the types of things that we'll begin to think about as we move forward in the next few days and weeks around what's the best way to get parents' input. So I think it's a great idea.
Okay, any last comments on that, or we're all set? All right, well, thank you everyone very much for that. That's all excellent information. And thank you for all your work yet again. So now we'll move on to a discussion about April vacation.
So just a little bit of context about the school calendar. So the Commissioner of Education put out a guideline or new parameters for schools because of the extended closure and the pandemic. And basically what that said was that whatever the district's last day of school was based on the 185th day, that would be the district's last day. However, if the district hadn't used those 5 snow days, then those would be subtracted. So as of, I believe, March 15th, I believe it's March 15th, any day not in session does not count toward that 185 days. That was a waiver from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So as a district, we had 3 snow days in December, and we had the March 13th day. So we had 4 of those snow days in our calendars built in. So that would have brought us to June 22nd as the last day of our school year, regardless of how many days we were closed after, I believe it was March 15th. So the most recent communication from the commissioner was around April vacation, and that if districts chose to continue with remote learning during April vacation, it would count towards the 180 days in session. So, so basically what the conversation has been around the Commonwealth with most communities is, what do we do about April vacation? If we attend school during April vacation and have remote learning, that's 4 days that counts toward our 180-day requirement. Therefore, our last day would be June 16th. The thinking that we're doing as a leadership team is really trying to predict the future. Honestly, if we knew we were coming back May 4th, this wouldn't even be a conversation, because there is nothing more important than having being in person with our students, and that, you know, the days that we would gain from remote learning do not equate to the days in person teaching that takes place with our teachers. However, I'm not at all confident that we'll be returning to a normal school year at any time soon. So we've been entertaining that conversation. What do we do with April vacation? And do we continue with remote learning? We just started. If we stop for April vacation, we lose momentum. Do we hold April vacation with the understanding that we're coming back May 4th? So we surveyed teachers and we surveyed parents just to get a pulse of what people were thinking. And I do have Southborough's survey results. So we had 739 community members, Southborough community members, take the survey. And the blue is conduct remote learning during April vacation. So we had 84.1%. And then the red is hold April vacation as scheduled. So this was families who took the surveys feedback. And then in terms of our faculty and staff, we had 138 faculty take the survey. 85.5% selected conduct remote learning during April vacation, and 14.5% recommended that we hold April vacation as scheduled. So I can share that we conducted the survey across our 3 districts, and the results in the Northbrook community and at the regional level mirrored, for the most part, Southborough's results. So tomorrow at the combined meeting, this will be a discussion, a topic for the committee to consider whether to continue with remote learning and have our last day of school be June 16th, or to hold April vacation as a vacation and have our last day of school be June 22nd.
So Greg, I have a clarifying question. So it's a 4-day difference because the Monday during April vacation would still be recognized as a holiday?
Correct. Because it's a legal holiday, we have to take the holiday.
Okay, and so then would remote learning, if April vacation were canceled and remote learning were held, I know from, I'm just not sure what schedule the other schools are on. I know for Neary, where it's only a Monday through Thursday kind of thing, and then Friday is mostly used as a catch-up day.
Yeah.
So if remote learning were to be held, would learning just happen Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or would that now be on a Tuesday through Friday schedule?
So it would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with Friday with office hours and educators contacting students and families.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. And you said that and the survey results were basically the same in the other 2 districts?
We had, I believe, a little under 1,900 responses from community members across the 3 districts. So it was a good sample size.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good response rate.
Could I ask, is there a reason that, or is, and this might come down to the waiver or the state mandates, but that we couldn't do both, drop the April vacation? And I mean, I think it's unlikely that we're going to come back to school, but in the event that it does return, and to continue it out.
So it really comes down to, obviously we work with associations and collective bargaining agreements, and, our teachers, I think teaching remotely is a tremendous amount of work. And these are not days off for educators. They're putting an immense amount of effort and work into this. So it really comes down to honoring our collective bargaining agreement and maintaining that 185-day requirement.
Thank you.
So again,
anyone else? I know we're going to have a fuller discussion about this tomorrow night at the combined, but any other preliminary questions right now?
So Katura, can I just comment on the comments that we received?
Of course.
And again, I would say the majority of the 15% of educators and families who wanted to hold April vacation, the perspective was really they needed a break. They needed some downtime. They spoke to the stress that's happening in their households, whether you have two working families parents trying to work remotely, whether educators are just exhausted from all this effort around remote learning. So that was primarily the feedback and the comments that we received from the survey around the 15%.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I'm one of those parents who said that. I know I'm in the minority, but I was planning on taking some time off from work, and with this remote learning, I think a lot of parents who, whether they work or not, are finding this the days are very long. So normally I would have my work concentrated in the morning, and it's stretching through the whole day because I have all the interruptions with the kids in their school and stuff like that. So I personally was really looking forward to a break. If families wanted to, would there be a huge consequence if they wanted to take some of those days off still during that week?
No. So I think, again, going back to, meeting families where they are in their context, there would be no negative repercussions if a family chose to take a break for their family because that was the right thing to do. Absolutely. And I think that's been our perspective, again, all along with Ennisboro Connect 2.0. But our teachers, our expectation for educators would be that they'd be available, they'd be teaching, they'd be holding office hours, they'd be available throughout the day to connect with kids and provide learning opportunities.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that more teachers didn't want a break in a way. I think it's really admirable that they're all like, yes, let's keep going. But I'm a little surprised that more didn't want a little bit of a break, considering all the stress and their own personal stress and their families and all that. But my opinion is, like, seeing this, it seems pretty clear. It's a large majority that wants to keep going. So it's good to know. I'm glad you guys did the survey.
All right.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's similar between families and teachers.
I can tell you that I don't want another pandemic to get these types of survey responses.
Yeah, I know. I don't think we've ever.
About people have replied. That's pretty impressive.
Me neither.
We've never had this kind of response rate. That's amazing. All right. Well, thank you for that. All right. Unless anyone has anything else, I think that brings us to Neary School Improvement Plan update.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and change the host to Kathleen. So just give me 1 second. And we did practice this earlier today, so it should work perfectly.
All right.
Kathleen, you have to give me back the hosting when you're done now.
Do I have to? Kind of like being in charge. All right. Okay. So I have to say in advance, it's a little chilly out here in my sunroom, which has now dropped to about 40 degrees. So if my teeth chatter, you'll know why. So thank you for this opportunity. Even though it's not the ideal situation to be able to present, I'm proud to be able to share the great work that the Neary team is doing and has been doing in connection to our 2018-2020 school improvement plan in connection to the goals and action steps. So I want to begin by thanking our school council members, Kim Collins, Lisa D'Souza, Sheila Finnegan, Dave Lang, Miriam Saldo, Ann Sinclair, and Kim Tolander. So although we were unable to meet in March, our collective work throughout the year has allowed us to examine our action steps and the progress that we've made. And I'm going to share some of those with you this evening. So for goal 1 in our school improvement plan, it focused on student support. And for this one, I'm going to highlight our PBIS initiative, our MARC visit, which is the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center, and our social thinking. So for PBIS, last year as a staff, we developed a school-wide positive behavior intervention system initiative. And we use this program to help our students to have a safe, positive learning environment and to provide consistency in all areas across the school. We have 5 pillars or expectations at Neary: be responsible, be ready, be respectful, be kind, and be safe. And the expectations are posted throughout the building, and teachers take time at the beginning of the year to explain what the expectations are throughout the school, for example, in the dining room, in recess, in bus lines, so that we're all able to understand how to function together in a safe and effective way in our learning environment. To reinforce these expectations, students receive individual high-five stickers, and these stickers are carried by all of our staff members, from custodians to dining room staff to teachers, ESPs, and students are caught demonstrating these throughout our school day. And then once they've received 5, they visit my office. They receive a certificate of a principal certificate, as well as a positive email home. This year, we were able to have 2 visits from the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center. So our first visit was a staff training with Dr. Elizabeth Englander, and she is actually the founder of this program. So she was able to come and teach our teachers about internet safety, ways to students to problem solve, and really focused on how to make this the most positive environment for students and helping them to navigate the challenges that they face as 4th and 5th graders. And then we were also able to have them visit us just last month in a student assembly for one for 4th and one for 5th grade on internet safety and problem solving. It was an interactive game-like approach where the instructor came and posed questions to students, and they worked collaboratively with their team to problem solve and identify ways to help them navigate the situations that they were in. For our 4th grade friends, it was the first time that they created a presentation for 4th graders. And what they did behind the scenes with me is work through our care themes and things we were working on as a staff and a student body, and be able to weave those into their presentation. The feedback from Dr. Englander was fantastic and very positive, so much so that they're going to continue to pilot grade 4 programs in a way that they didn't think they were going to be able to prior to coming to Neary. So that was a great opportunity. And last, our social thinking skills. So Mrs. Miller, so Cheryl Miller, who's our speech and language pathologist, brought some professional development to our teachers based on Michelle Garcia Winner's work on social thinking. And what it does is it helps teachers to understand skills and strategies to best assist their students in learning how to engage in social information processing. So things like how to attend, how to interpret, problem solve, and respond to different situations. It helps to increase the success of students in the social world, whether in school or outside of school as well. And last, we had Jessica Dimitrov, our behavioral specialist, provide safety care training, specifically de-escalation strategies to our teachers and our ESPs. Please stop me if you have any questions. So I also wanted to speak about our instructional rounds. So this year, our instructional rounds question focused on student engagement. And if students weren't engaged, we wondered, what are they doing? And as a staff, we examined the data that was presented to us by our instructional round team. And we found that the majority of classroom students in the classroom were actively engaged in the learning, both verbally and non-verbally. But we're going to continue to explore how to increase engagement and recognize when students aren't engaged and develop strategies that students can employ to decrease off-task behaviors and increase engagement. We're also in our second year of our M-Wave. So this is a grant we received from the Southborough Education Foundation. And I apologize for the dog barking. So this has, I've spoken to this before, but it has the opportunity, it gives students the opportunity to understand how they're feeling in different situations and increase their ability to articulate how they're feeling. So we found that our students in second year, so our fifth grade students, as well as our sixth grade students, because this is also supported at Trottier as well, are really beginning to internalize these strategies that they're learning and able to employ it as well as reflect on it. So where Jennifer Matthews and Jessica Dimitrov at Neary are really doing a terrific job with this. We continue our compassion and respect for everyone. That's our care theme. And we have continued our connection and partnership with the Southborough Senior Center. We continue to have seniors into our learning space, assisting in our Pause for Reading program, the Neary Book Fair, and Literacy Night. And unfortunately, because school, we were not in session, that we're not going to be able to have our first concert for the seniors, but Lana Fitzgerald, our music instructor, our general music instructor, was going to have our fourth grade friends present an assembly for our seniors, and we had over 40 seniors signed up for it, but hopefully next year we'll be able to bring that back as well. And this week we launched our kindness project. So that's where we've asked families to demonstrate kindness in a variety of ways. We have had a lot of students who've painted rocks, who've drawn on their driveway, who've gone and visited local elderly neighbors to just show some kindness. So that's continuing this week, and we had Neary Kindness Week on our calendar since the beginning. So we're excited that we're able to continue spreading kindness, because #ChooseKind has been a motto at Neary for a couple of years now. and Southborough Youth and Family. So this year we were able to partner with Southborough Youth and Family to bring social emotional skills workshops to both our 4th and 5th grade friends. This is the first time that they've made this available to this. This is an intensive training that they've gone through, and we are the pilot school for the district. And so a small group of students, I think there are 10 at each grade level, have been able to participate in this on a weekly basis during our RTI blocks. And it is led by 2 Southborough Youth and Family counselors each week. And we were just about to wrap this up at the end of March, but I did hear back this week that they would love to continue this next year. It was really successful, and they found that students were really engaging in the learning, and again, being able to demonstrate their understanding of what was being taught to them by employing these strategies in various situations that were being presented to them. So for goal 2, the focus areas I'd like to share are our data-wise work, our professional learning communities, professional development, and I will finish with technology. So data-wise is a process that we've been engaged in. This is a course, it's a MOOC, it's a massive online open course through Harvard edX that our teachers, this is our 2nd year that we've been engaged in this process. The first year, and it's been a team goal at both grade levels. The first year we went through the data-wise process with fidelity, focusing on the work that is from a school in New Jersey, and went through the videos about their work and their journey through this process. But this year we've shifted it to using Neary data, Neary student data, and working with the assessments we have within our own school. So that's been exciting work. The first step that we engaged in was organizing for collaborative work. So that included setting expectations for effective meetings. We developed norms of collaboration, and agendas were shared out in advance so that teams could contribute to this. Kathy Lazat, in her work with math, also utilized some of the protocols that we were using in the data-wise process. So that was a nice connection. So PLCs we have PLCs once a week at each grade level, and each week is a different focus, data-wise being one of them, and then math is another. We also focus on ELA, and then the 4th week is to really to think about our work over the past 3 weeks, reflect on that, and determine next steps. The second step is building assessment literacy. So this is analyzing results from a variety of data sources, including MCAS, formative and summative in-class assessments, and we really took a deep dive into our assessment inventory. So what our assessment inventory is it identifies all the methods, that's all the ways that we're using to assess students. So that was, that's been a year-long examination so that we can make sure we're assessing students in the most meaningful manner and not over-assessing, but assessing to get the information that we need in order to drive our instruction forward. Step 3 was to create a data overview, and I'm going to use grade 4 as an example because they worked collaboratively with Kathy Lazat this year to narrow their focus around identifying an area to strengthen, and they determined at the beginning of the year that division is an area that they would like to work on. They created shared data sheets and used noticing and wonderings and student work analysis protocols, and developed a team goal, which was to have students demonstrate growth in finding whole number quotients and remainders by using various strategies. So their work to date has revealed positive growth for all students. And by continuing to analyze their data collectively, they've been able to differentiate and target their instruction for each individual learner. And then the last step we were just dipping our toes into was digging into student data. And so we have already talked as a PLC at both grade levels that our work is not done with DataWise because there are 4 other steps to this process. So we will continue this as a shared goal for next year, a shared professional practice goal. And at both grade levels, they have had good conversations around creating student learning goals from the work we're doing within DataWise. So our professional learning communities are data driven. We're actually using our Neary student data to across the content areas. This year has been a focus on math, but we are moving into expanding into ELA for next year. We've also created a social studies PLCs. It's a vertical PLC, so there are some 4th grade teachers and some 5th grade teachers. With the new social studies standards, we felt it was important to really start to unpack those standards and develop plans of how to roll those out over the next few years. Again, it's a collaborative effort between both grade levels as well as the vertical teaming. Our goals are being developed out in our professional learning communities, whether it's our math goals or for those teachers in 5th grade who don't teach math, we've created some team writing goals as well as reading goals. And then the exciting news is the vertical articulation opportunities that we've been able to engage in this year. So what that looks like is we were able to, again, with the help of Kathy Lazat, have 3rd grade teachers and 4th grade teachers get together and have conversations around math and the standards and what the expectations are, what we want students to know and be able to do as a result of our instruction by the end of the year. And 4th and 5th grade teachers have engaged in the same process. So that was really exciting, and Steve Mucci was a huge part of this as well. And teachers really found a great benefit to having to being able to get together to have those conversations. So in the area of curriculum and professional development, this year, some of our teachers were able to participate in off-site professional development offered through Primary Source. And an example I'm going to use is Kristen Tev and David Finneran. They were able to participate in the course that was called Mosaic America, which is about teaching inclusive elementary social studies. And Kristen, when I reached out to Kristen yesterday, she couldn't say enough about this course that they took. It was a 3-day course. And she said that it gave her a comfort level to explore inquiry-based learning in the area of social studies. And she said it really changed her as an educator. She enjoyed that, and she was able to share that information out back with her team. Joy Head and Vicky Gardula also attended a PD through Primary Source, and it was called Dynamic Continent. And Joy shared that it was providing educators a way to tackle the new social studies standards in a practical and meaningful way. So all 4 teachers were able to bring their learning and resources back to their grade level teams, and Joy and Vicky are actually part of the social studies PLC, the vertical PLC at Neary, so they were able to also share at grade 5. It's a great opportunity to bring the learning back into the school. Our PLCs, we continue to embed this into our master schedule, building in protected times so that we're able to engage in those collaboration opportunities across the content areas, which leads to more effective practice. Again, protecting those times, making sure that we have a schedule, a year-long schedule and a plan of action of how to make sure that we're reaching across the content areas and making sure we're planning and goal setting as we move through the process. Again, looking at data, using our data-wise process and protocols embedded within that. And then finally, making time to review the data, review our action steps, and really look at our goals, analyze it, and determine what are next steps in order to be able to meet the needs of all of our students. And finally, technology. So Laboratory continues to be a vibrant and highly engaging space for our students. And over the past 2 years, Mrs. Brewis and Mrs. Wagner have developed solid standards-based units for each grade level. And what that looks like at Neary is 2 classrooms joined together. So there's an average of 40 students gathered in this large space. And they create these amazing opportunities. And originally, when we were going to present to school committee in person, we were going to bring 5th grade students to highlight one of the projects that they worked on, but we can't do that. So the next best thing is the teachers pulled some of the work that the students had been engaged in on a design build project they were working on called Mrs. Go Fetch. And they created a brief video so you can get a glimpse into what our students are engaged in through this design build process. So I'm going to play this for you now. Hopefully. So thank you for listening. Questions or comments?
Thank you so much. I mean, I have a comment, which is that it's clear how much happens at Neary that can't happen during this short, hopefully short period of time that we're at home. I mean, what a vibrant and wonderful community, and some amazing learning happening for the kids and for the teachers, which is really, really great. So
yeah.
I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Well, I don't have a question, but I've got just a couple of comments. I thought, Kathleen, I thought your plan update was very comprehensive. I thought it was very understandable. And I thought it was very well presented.
Thank you, Roger.
And the Mrs. Go Fetch presentation at the end was fabulous.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah, Kathleen, that was the first time. I mean, I know the goals that you've been working on, and we talk about this stuff regularly, but the video at the end was fantastic. And anytime you can take a real world problem and give kids an opportunity to go through the design process, I think is so valuable. So great job.
Thank you.
Is it possible to get a copy of that of the Mrs. Go Fetch?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
That'd
I
be
can
great.
share that with Greg, and then he can share that out.
That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was two things. One is that was great, so thanks. And the amount of professional development that's going on is really awesome. And I wonder, I mean, obviously you share this with us here,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like parents don't always understand like how much professional development teachers do. It would be great. I mean, maybe this is in this more, I haven't, to be honest, I looked at your most recent one just today. I might have missed one or two here or there, but maybe it's it'd be great to share this with the wider community so they can just see like behind the scenes how much work the teachers are doing, data driven analysis and like, real world stuff. So that really helps our kids, our students. And on this laboratory thing today, so my daughter's in 5th grade and they're doing this at home. Like, I don't know if all kids are doing this in 5th grade, but today she was coming up with like this cool design. She picked something that would help a gardener because I garden, and she came up with something really cool. So she loves, I mean, the laboratory stuff is great, and it got her off the screen. So kudos to the teachers for doing virtual learning that was, not screen-based. That was great.
Yeah, Lisa Wagner and Amy have really collaborated well. At last week we met and talked about what laboratory can look like for our learners, and really came up with some interesting design processing ideas to be able for the students to use what they've already learned through their classes and really be able to implement it outside of the classroom setting. So that's exciting.
I had a comment and a question. I too thought it was a great presentation, very well done. And I likewise enjoyed the video at the end there. It really kind of brought what laboratory is all about home, for me at least. And my question had to do with the data-wise, and with step 2, building an assessment literacy, taking stock of all the ways you're assessing students.
Yes.
That's something I've always been interested in. And can you talk a little more about that, and just what are some of the different assessments that you're using?
Sure. So this started actually back with curriculum leaders over a year ago, and we were at each school, we developed a list of assessments that we were administering to our students. And then what we did at Neary is we broke it down by content area, as well as general ed and special education, because we don't want to be over-assessing our students or overlapping with our students. So for example, we don't want a student being assessed, we wouldn't want a student being assessed in math in the general education classroom, and then during their during a pullout session, a small group, a student who's on an IEP, say in math, with a math goal, being assessed on the same thing that we're already assessing in the general education classroom. So we want to make sure that we're identifying all the ways students are being assessed and making sure that it's giving us the information that we need without having to repeat assessments. So we have a whole compilation of assessments, and now we're in the process of really breaking those apart to make sure that that's the best way to extrapolate the information that we need to drive our instruction. So it's great work, it's intense work, but it's really going to help our students and help our teachers be more available to target our instruction rather than over assessing our students.
That sounds like a great idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to acknowledge Kathleen's leadership. She's always extremely professional and collegial. She's a team builder. She's very collaborative, and she's always student-centered. So she always puts students first. So I just want to thank you, Kathleen, for all of your hard work.
Thank you. Well, it's a team effort, and the teachers at Neary are just incredible. And I really have to say, it's been amazing to see over through the course of our 2 years of our school, our plan, but more importantly, over the past couple of weeks, just really coming together and being extremely student-centered and collaborative, and employing all of the strategies that we've been working on through this data-wise process. So it's been exciting, but thank you for that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Neary is a special place, and I think we can all see that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Greg,
Okay.
you want to give it back to you?
Please.
All right. Okay.
All right. So I think that brings us to legislative update.
So just a quick update. I've already spoke about MCAS, and we're waiting for official word. Again, because it's part of a larger law, we have to wait for the DESE to give us the official word. And then our Student Opportunity Act plans were due April 1st. And again, because that was a part of a larger act, that deadline has been pushed out. And then just in general, we're monitoring the landscape of legislative initiatives. I think one that we're experiencing tonight is the ability for committees to have remote meetings is part of the legislative changes, and we're just monitoring the financial landscape as well in terms of how that may impact the FY21 budget and future budgets.
Okay, thank you. Next is old business, assistant superintendent search.
And I will have Heather speak to the search process. Heather, you have to unmute.
There we go. Hi, I'm pleased to share that the assistant superintendent search has been going very, very well. We had over 50 applicants apply for this position, and the search committee has met a number of times. Some of the search committee members are actually with us tonight at this meeting. So I want to thank them for participating. I think Clayton, Mary Ellen, Rhoda, Julie, and Roger, who are here tonight, I just want to thank you for being on that search committee. There are a number of other teachers, parents, directors, and school committee members on that committee. So the committee has met and interviewed a number of candidates, and this was done virtually. The committee was very adaptable in using a different forum and format. So I'd say that that went very well, and we have decided on moving some candidates forward as semifinalists, and those semifinalists have been presented to Greg, and there will be another committee that will be doing some second interviews of the semifinalists, and that should be happening next week.
Okay.
I'd like to comment. You know, I was a part of that committee, and I was I'd just like to give a shout out to Heather on the way she handled it. The meetings were prepared, they were organized, they were efficient, and really that was due to her leadership. The other thing is, I don't know if this is one of the first meetings, Heather, you've done like this, but you know, to be able to manage not only in preparation for the meeting, to get all the candidates lined up to show up, and then have different people enter and exit, you know, these meetings right on time. That's a challenge, and it really was very well done. And you know, as a participant, her leadership made it a lot easier for at least me, you know, to be able to, I guess, contribute effectively. So thank you.
Thank you so
I'd
much.
just like to echo that, Roger. Heather, the structure, there wasn't a single technical glitch. It was incredible. The 2 days just flew by, and I think we were all incredibly impressed with how well it worked under these conditions.
I still want to talk about the lunch break sometime in the future, but you know, we can let that go for now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, that moves us on to the superintendent's report to the committee, and enrollments is first.
So Roger, I just want to make a comment that because of your feedback, lunch breaks are 31 minutes now. So we've made a slight adjustment for you.
Well, I appreciate that because every minute counts.
So the first report to the committee is the March 23rd enrollment reports. And as of right now, what we're monitoring most closely is the kindergarten enrollment, and currently we have 124 students enrolled in Clayton. I don't know if you want to speak to any changes since March 23rd at this point.
None that I'm aware of. Tracy and I have been in contact with families. There are some questions about the process. You did address that earlier, and I think once we have a clearer direction on how we're going to proceed, we'll be contacting them. But I think most families are very understanding about what we're facing and are able to cope with the uncertainty at this point.
And then just in terms of the general variance from the August to March, we have 17 more students than we projected. So that's notable. So that is our enrollments.
Okay.
Questions?
Yeah, I just had one question about the kindergarten. So when you're talking about the families being understanding, are you talking mostly about having to postpone the screening?
So what we do is, as I mentioned earlier, one of the previous school committee meetings, the information sent out to the community. We have people register. And then from the registration point, we set up screening times on 2 days in April. Those parents have already been notified about their slots in the screening process. And we essentially have just reached out to them and said, it's on hold or it's postponed at this point, and are fielding phone calls about what that means. Mostly about, are they still going to be enrolled in a kindergarten program? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, the screening part we can do when we decide in the fall or at another point, but it's more around, how does this impact me as a family and my child in terms of kindergarten enrollment?
Yeah. Okay. So it's just understanding that that's going to move forward regardless of the screening not happening.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So next is the FY20 monthly general fund expenditure report. And just a quick note before Becky gives some of the highlights. We have frozen our FY20 budget. Only essential purchases are moving forward, and we're monitoring our budgets very closely with the goal of trying to end the year with significant positive balances to make any adjustments required because of the COVID-19 health situation. And I'll let Becky speak to the monthly general fund expenditure report.
So as Greg said, the budget is currently frozen. And as of March 31st, we had $323,311 or 1.55 remaining on the bottom line. I had mentioned earlier some areas that we are closely watching that may be an impact, specifically the food service budget. But there are also some budget areas where we are anticipating some savings. Those areas are daily subs. We're looking at a possible savings of about $60,000. General and educational supplies, we're looking at approximately $40,000. Utilities, our electricity and our heat, we're obviously not in the buildings using as much of those two resources, so we're anticipating about $50,000 in savings there. And then also athletics, depending on what happens at the middle school and with our return, there's a possible positive of $10,000 to the bottom line. So while there are some areas where we anticipate higher costs, we also know that there are some areas where we will see some savings that will offset those costs.
Okay. I actually was thinking about this earlier, that at some point along the line, I know we're still sort of early in the closure process and everything, but it might be helpful to have sort of a summary of all of the ways in which our costs, you know, we're losing revenue versus where we're saving, and just sort of have that all consolidated into just something that gives us an overall picture of how this is affecting the budget.
Summary?
Yeah, it's actually something that my team and I have been working on putting together.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Need a motion to approve this?
Yes, please.
Let me move that we approve the monthly general fund expenditure report as of March 31st, 2020 for the Southborough Public School District fiscal year 2020 budget until audited.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote because we're on Zoom. Let's see. Paul?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
And yes. Okay. Okay, brings us to budget calendar and school committee approved budget.
So the FY21 budget calendar, obviously the next milestone is town meeting. I did have a chance to listen to the select board meeting last evening, and obviously the 4/16/2020 town meeting date is no longer feasible. So the town is, I don't think they made an official decision of when the next meeting is. I think they are trying to push it out to May 16th, with the understanding that it might need to be pushed out again. So as soon as we have that information, I will forward that to the committee. But again, it will not be on April 16th, 2020.
Okay.
In terms of just another comment to the typical election cycle, they also spoke about town elections, and no determination has been made. However, it appears from the conversations that town elections also may be pushed out from their original date. So again, as soon as more information is available, I'll communicate that to the committee.
Okay.
In terms of the FY21 school committee approved budget, obviously this budget was created with a certain context and understanding. And what was not part of that budget was the COVID-19 health situation. So we are working very closely with the town administrator, Mark Purple, to see what potential impact this pandemic may have on future revenues for the community, and ultimately how it may impact our FY21 school committee approved budget. As a leadership team, we will be engaging in some exercises and what if scenarios so that we're prepared and planned and ready if we are asked to come back to the drawing table for our FY21 school committee approved budget. So I will keep the committee abreast of any information I receive, but behind the scenes, we are going to be beginning those scenarios just in terms of best practice.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Okay, brings us to educational policy, none at this time. And then, hold on, I have to scroll back up to my agenda. Policy development and distribution.
So we have 2 second readings. Disposition of executive session minutes is the first, and the second is conflict of interest. So these 2 policies were brought to you at the last meeting. There were no changes to the disposition of that executive session minutes from the last time we discussed it.
Okay.
Do you want to end up voting these together or to separate them?
Will the committee together, I would imagine. It's up to the chair, Katurov.
Yeah, I mean, we can do them together if we don't have any big changes or discussion, I think.
I have a question on the next one.
Okay. Do we want to do the, yeah, go ahead.
Is it 280 or 260?
So just a quick comment that Northborough and Regional have the same policy. So it was just making sure that the policies were named the same number across the 3 districts. So it is 280.
In the document that I had, one of them still, the second page still says 260, I think, but maybe that's just.
So we'll make that correction.
Okay. Anything else on those? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve policy B210, disposition of executive session minutes, as well as B280, conflict of interest.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Roger?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yep.
And yes. Great. Thank you. All right, then distribution of approved policy, that's in the packet. So we have that, which brings us to personnel report.
So we have a couple of appointments, special education aide and a music teacher long-term sub, and a retirement. Suzanne Hughes, who's a long-standing, outstanding Southborough educator. I think she also worked in Northborough. She's currently a kindergarten teacher and she's retiring. And at some point before now and the end of the year, we'll have Clayton speak to her great work.
Okay. All three of my kids have Mrs. Hughes. She's wonderful. All right. That brings us to action on the minutes of March 11th, 2020.
You want a motion on this?
Sure.
I'll move to approve the Southborough School Committee open meeting minutes from Wednesday, March 11th, 2020.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or changes? All right. We'll do a roll call vote. Roger?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Okay, and yes for me. All right, so I think the last thing, approval of bills and payrolls, that's separate, not over Zoom, unless there's anything to say about that. Becky, no?
I guess how is it working for everyone so far?
Great.
We've only had a couple.
Yeah. Much easier than driving to Neary. So
yeah.
It's been great. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else has any feedback, but I think it's been fantastic.
I haven't done it yet. Are we just gonna, can you remind me, Becky, are we just gonna get an email when it's our turn?
So I had been sending it to the people who were appointed as liaisons for the payroll and the warrant, but if you'd like to stick with the schedule, I can continue to do that.
Doesn't matter to me.
Me neither. I don't think I've gotten anything from eSign yet, though. Were we supposed to get something from them?
You would get it if you were one of the signers. So you would get an email letting you know that you have a document ready to sign.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. So then agenda items for next month. Looks like we have school choice, public hearing and vote. Obviously update on the COVID situation, closure. Anything else anybody wants to suggest?
I don't have anything to suggest, but I'd just like to take 20 seconds and give you an update on the master plan committee situation.
Okay.
Naturally, they have scheduled the meeting at precisely the time of the combined meeting for tomorrow night, so I won't be attending it. It just seems like that always happens, but it's a large committee, and they're putting this meeting together, a Zoom meeting, because they have to take some action to make sure that what the consultant has done gets approved, or they run out of money. The consultant has a time frame, so they run out of the ability to use the consultant. So it's progressing, but this COVID-19 thing has slowed things down quite a bit.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. Anything else on agenda items? So that brings us to our second audience sharing. I suppose anybody on this call can share as a member of the audience.
I have a quick question that I forgot to ask when we were talking about April vacation and all that. Are we keeping days off that are currently scheduled on the calendar, like Good Friday, this Friday? I mean, I would think we'd have Memorial Day. Like, are all those days staying as days off?
Correct. And I did send out a reminder to the leadership team to remind faculty and staff that this Friday is Good Friday and it's a day off.
Okay. Excellent. Oh yeah, sorry, I did hear that from you, but I had that on my list of questions from parents.
Who remain in remote learning mode, all days off in the calendar, holidays and so forth will be days off.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Just,
Okay, thank you.
Katura, just in terms of an agenda item,
Yep.
Becky reminded me the MSBA boiler project at Finn. We can provide an update at the next
Okay,
meeting.
great. Okay.
Will there be an update on the assistant superintendent progress? Will there be enough activity occur by the next meeting to have an update on that?
Roger, my goal is to, and it depends on how things progress, but bring a candidate forth at the combined meeting on Wednesday, April 29th.
Okay.
That would be my hope, but if not, if that does not happen, we can provide an update at the May meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, I think that that just about does it. Thank you very much, everyone. Unless there's anything else, we could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Was that who? Did somebody say second?
Yeah, I did. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, and we'll do a roll call. So Roger,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
and yes for me. So, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody.